Okay, hello everyone. My name is Nathan Rains. I'm a wildlife diversity biologist with Texas Parks and Wildlife. And a little bit what I do, I work primarily with threatened and endangered species and kind of coordinate research that our department does in the region that I live in. And a lot of that involves horned lizards and other reptiles. And I think most of what people are interested in is kind of the horned lizard and what we've been doing with that species for probably close to 10 years now. So we get the question a lot about horned lizards, and there's a lot of interest with landowners, as you can expect, with Texas horned lizards. It's one of those species, kind of like white-tailed deer, that just every landowner kind of has an interest and a fascination in. And from working with landowners for many years, ultimately, they all ask us a couple questions. One was, what happened to horned lizards? And it's a combination of things like habitat loss and fire ants and pesticide use to kill out the harvester ants that's their primary food source. So in the next question they'd always ask is, well, can you bring horned lizards back? And so that kind of led us down the road we are at today, and looking at reintroduction, and the research behind that is just driven by the interest that species has with people. And as you know, they declined really for the last 50 years. So a lot of our older generation remembers having horned lizards around their properties. And so they have kind of a cultural attachment to that species and an interest in bringing it back. So that's kind of what drove our efforts to try to see if it was even possible to reintroduce Texas horned lizards back into where they used to be. The genetics from kind of the Panhandle all the way through West Texas were fairly similar, and then we get down into South Texas, you get a little bit of a distinct break in the genetics there. So that kind of gave us some rough guidelines of what was appropriate to translocate and kind of how to direct our efforts. So we spent a few years trying to translocate adult lizards from one area to another, and we caught adults that were wild and put them on one of our wildlife management areas, and studied those for about 4 or 5 years with radio telemetry. And we gained a lot of knowledge about home range, how far they disperse, what they do, where they go, what kind of habitats they prefer. So it gave us a lot of baseline data on how horned lizards would behave if we reintroduced them in that fashion. But the only downside of that is horned lizards in general have such a high mortality rate that it's just almost impractical to catch enough adults to try to translocate them from one area to another. It's just not really. We've done the initial years when we would collect those lizards from the wild, the adults that we would translocate. We had some of the vets from the Fort Worth Zoo there doing all kinds of screenings for pathogens and parasites and stuff. And they were pretty healthy. We kind of moved in the direction we are now, where we're trying to breed horned lizards in captivity. And we're working with a number of zoos, the Fort Worth Zoo and Dallas Zoo and San Antonio Zoo, and a few others, trying to breed them in captivity, because our thought is we can, instead of catching 50 adults in the wild, maybe we can breed them in captivity and release 500 young. That's kind of our reasoning and our goals there. So that's where we're at right now. We're really working hard with the zoos to try to build up some breeding stock, and it's a kind of work in progress. We're learning as we go about the husbandry of the species and how to get them to breed. They don't always cooperate the way we'd like them to, but so we can release the hatchlings into the wild. We've done that so far for a couple of years, and haven't released the number we would like to. I think we released around 130 or 40 last year down at Mason Mountain Wildlife Management Area. But hopefully we'll have a whole bunch more this year, and going forward we can kind of learn how to kind of mass produce horned lizards, so to speak. I think that's kind of the future where we are with reintroducing lizards into their historic range. So legally you're not supposed to harass them or harm them or collect them in any way. But the best thing people can do is go ahead and take a picture of that and record it in the iNaturalist or some other means of documenting that occurrence, because that would really give us some important data on current distribution and where we find them, where we don't. So just documenting that lizard with a picture, so we can bet that's actually what it is, that would be the best thing that anybody can do. It's really, really helpful for us, actually. get asked a lot by landowners, by people that are just interested in horned lizards in general. Is what can they do to help? And the best thing they can do is just try to help us just improve habitat for horned lizards. One of the things that really happened over the years was we lost a lot of their habitat through either urbanization or through converting native prairies and brush habitat into improved pastures, and those kind of habitats aren't really suitable for horned lizards. And the other thing we did is for years people poisoned out big harvester ants, red ants. And horned lizards they're really a true diet specialist for ants. So when you remove their food source, obviously they can't thrive. So the best thing people can do to help is help us just improve, conserve, restore habitat that's suitable to horned lizards, and to protect things like red ants that are a food source for them. The other thing is helpful just for people just to record sightings of horned lizard. Now that we have programs like iNaturalist, we have kind of a vehicle for people to record, where they see horned lizards. It gives us an accurate idea of what their range currently is, and where they're still abundant, where they're not. For years we knew they were declining, but we didn't have real accurate maps of documenting that change. So now through citizen science and programs like iNat that we can vet in some way, we really have getting a lot better understanding of where horned lizards occur, where they don't occur, and kind of where that line of decline is that we can really focus on.